So we're going to take a quick look at the condition of the reflector inside the lens just before I go to bed. Right, so we'll take the blocks and the clamps out. And see what we got here. Oh, and the wax paper too. Ooh. Well, I think that's pretty nice. Just let me show you. Okay. So now I'm going to get a light on this. Oh boy, oh boy. This looks really good. Now we do have some we do have some contact cement that has been pushed out to the periphery of the to the edge here of the reflector plate. And I can see by running my finger at the contact cement is not uniformly bonding. And it may be difficult to see this. That's all right. As I said earlier, this does not have to be factory perfect. It needs to be functional. And I can see that this is pretty much functional. So I can't get my fingernails under here. Take a careful, more careful. I'm going to take a more careful look with the magnifying glass. It's not too bad. So what I'm doing is running my fingers over the surface, over the reflecting surface of the reflecting plate. Alright, so what I've done at this point is I put the two smaller clamps here. And the larger clamps on the larger block here and here. Each clamp is at the outer edge of each block, and each block is toward the front edge of the lens. And the reason for this is that the reflective strip was just a little bit insecure toward the front of the edge of the lens, as I'm indicating here. So that puts the pressure of on the reflective strip out toward the edge of the lens where it was not quite secure. So we'll leave that for tonight. It's boy, oh goodness, almost midnight. So we're going to leave that. Just tightening up the clamps. So we'll leave that for now, and in the morning we'll take this off. We will attach the lens to the main headlight reflector. And we'll attach the reflector to the backing plate, which has the which is attached by the adjusting the headlight focusing screws, and then ultimately, well, we'll of course put the turn signal assembly. We'll attach that, which goes over here. And then finally, we'll mount the whole assembly using these 3 screws. The car. And that's our plan for the morning. So see you then. Well, here we are, I'm back. It is the next morning. I think this is day 6. See, this is what they never show you on, for example, Fast and Loud. You know, Richard Rawlings has always got his cars kind of coming off the assembly line there in the shop. But this is what goes on in the background that they really don't show you in the edited footage. So we just took the wagon down to a local AC shop. I had some problems with the air conditioning this summer and had to order parts from Volvo cars, Heritage in Sweden, and they just came in yesterday afternoon, so I went down, picked them up, dropped them off with the vehicle, and so we'll get the air conditioning done, get the headlight reassembled, and we're off to do a little fishing on Monday. This is Saturday the 23rd, I think, or 24th of September. Okay, so anyway, let's see what we got here. So I went down a couple of times last night in between watching two very fine Canadian Football League games to reposition the clamps and the wood blocks. And I had to bring my cell phone down because the automotive shop is going to call me with an estimate for the air conditioning. So if the phone rings, my apologies. Alright, so let's see what we got here. Oh boy, that looks pretty good. That looks very good. Alright, you want to see it too. Okay, so there is the reflector strip. What I'm going to do, there's what it looks like where the contact cement has been used, and so it will. So here's the main reflector. So it kind of fits together like that. Okay, and so the reflector strips at the bottom, so you don't see that part. All right. Shut the camera off for just a moment. All right, so I got a tiny little bit of Varsol here. And we'll just give the reflector strip a quick rub down. There. Now, as I said, you never get these things to come back to the pristine condition in which they leave the factory, but it certainly is more than meets my expectations. I note that there's a little bit of corrosion on the aluminum along the edges here near the front of the lens and at the back here, one or two little spots. I debated whether to get serious about removing those, but I thought since the whole assembly has been thoroughly dried out by this point, and since I'm going to reseal the lens into the reflector body, that should pretty much stop any further corrosion. So I think we'll just kind of leave it as is. Okay, so let's set up for the next operation. So I'm just going to turn the camera off for a moment. So the Varsol was used to clean up the reflector strip, and got a little bit of glass cleaner here that I'm going to use to take off any remaining fingerprints from the main reflector body. I'm not real happy with this. The the cost of the part is fairly high. There are places, suppliers in the U.S. that will sell you these things if they have them in stock at a reasonable price. Unfortunately, most of them do not ship to Canada, so I'm kind of stuck here. So I ordered the backing plates, as I mentioned, from Chapman's in British Columbia before I looked at the condition of the reflector. I think I would have ordered the entire assembly, and then of course we probably would not be going through quite the same extent that we've had to for the restoration of this particular unit, but what's done is done. So we'll just, as I say, leave it as is. Now the next step is to mate the backing plate to the reflector itself. So let's have a look at what this entails. So we've got the three nuts on the back of the bolts that hold this thing to the car, and I'll show you that when we go to reinstall it. So this is the back of it, right? This faces the firewall. This is what faces outward, and what we're looking at here are the three headlight adjustment bolts, and the next thing we're going to do is to use those to attach to the respective studs here. Oh, you can't see that. Here, here, and here. Now, before I do, I'm going to inspect the and I think I'm going to take this outside where I've got better light. The day is bright and sunny, so I think what I'm going to do is finish this work out on the back patio. So we'll turn the camera off for a moment and relocate. Okay, so we're back out here on the west patio in sunlight, and so I can see the condition of the original gasket material. In the process of removing the assembly, the headlight assembly from the front of the car, the lens just fell right off. Oh, that's Ophelia, by the way, over there. And her brother Marcus is just out of sight. Good look at how this goes together. I want to do it now because once I put the backing plate on, it becomes rather more awkward to work with. While I'm fiddling with this, I'm going to turn the camera off so I don't bore you. Okay, it's about an hour later. So this lens does fit quite well. There's a gasket here that goes around the perimeter of the reflector, and it looks as if it was a pressure fit. Now the gasket has dried out considerably and it's cracked in a number of places here. About every 1/8 of an inch there's a little crack in it. So I just made a dash over to the local auto supply before they close on Saturday and picked up some Permatex clear silicone sealant, which is specifically formulated for automotive use. So clean and dry all surfaces, cut nozzle to desired bead size, apply to one surface and assemble immediately. Surface being bonded may need clamping for up to an hour or until silicone is firm. Trim excess after curing with a sharp knife. Silicone skins and becomes tack-free in an hour. Allow 24 hours for full cure and maximum strength under normal circumstances, etc., etc. So, all right, that's what we're going to do. Now I've got lots of silicone around here, but I don't have anything with a sharp nozzle. So what I want to do is I'm just going to put a bead around the edge. Sorry, right there. I'm talking about here. Bead around the edge like that. And we should be able to get a pretty good fit. Now I'm actually going to apply it just behind me here in the garage so that it stays out of the sun, because it'll set up pretty quickly in this bright sunlight. So I'll be back in a minute. I've got a layer, a bead around the periphery of the lens, and I very carefully look to make sure that there are no voids. Minor issue there with a piece of the gasket that was protruding. And that looks pretty good. Right, so as you can see, it's formed all around. I think you can see that. And what we'll do is we'll clamp it. There are amazingly creative ways you can get this stuff on yourself. One thing I have to do is be certain I don't get any of it on the clamp heads. I'm going to put the smaller ones on first. Coming out. Yeah, you can see that. As you can see, this one's missing the orange bumper. I'm going to put this one on backwards. Good. Okay, so we're just going to let that cure for about an hour. So we'll see you then. Good morning. If you've been following this up until now, you'll recall that we left this thing to harden overnight. The weather has turned decidedly chilly here in central Ontario. We had a brutally hot summer, just unremitting heat for about 3 months. Very little rainfall. But the last week and a half it's turned decidedly cooler, and so I brought the Headlight lens and shell reflector inside last night because I didn't want the silicone to get too cold while it was hardening up. So that's by way of background. You can tell I've got a sweater on this morning, although it's almost noon. It's still just beginning to warm up. So I did go in last night and reset the clamps to make sure they were secure, and then to reset them along the edges here, just so that we got uniform pressure. A little bit that's broken out here. Got that rubbery feel that silicone does when it hardens up. So this will retain the lens, the silicone, but at the same time, if I ever did have to break the seal open, I could get a small knife or screwdriver in there and gradually work it loose around the edge. It'd be a pain, but in fact it's possible. This little funny cap device here, which is held in by 2 little screws, is in fact something which you can't see it, but on the inside here, this little cylindrical, shallow cylindrical area underneath is some drying gel, so that if any moisture does get into the interior of the headlamp, it over time will get sucked into the drying gel. It's probably useless by this point because this particular unit is the same age as the car, which is almost 25 years old. Anyway, I'm going to go and get changed. I just got back from church and get something to eat, and then we'll come back out and do the final assembly. Push this back a little bit. Okay. Now, the next step, as I mentioned yesterday, is to attach the backing plate. It's done all the trouble. Now, a couple of things to remember. Okay, so this is what the clips look like that hold the see that. The sun is so bright out here, it's difficult to see. I hope that comes out okay. Anyway, the clips go over the studs into which the adjusting bolts fit. So there you can see I've got a clip, and the way you put it on is you don't open the clip. You just put it in the slot in the stud and just roll it over. Now there's a little spring in one of them, and that's there to provide a little bit of tension. And what that does is it prevents sorry, I have to get a screwdriver. It effectively pushes back against the stud, and that prevents the reflector assembly from vibrating around. I hope that's clear as mud. Okay, so you got to push the spring down. So you can get the clip seated. There we go. Far enough in. And this one doesn't have a clip. And you can put these on here. Right now. Pressure fit. Well, you just have to push on the pin a little bit. You say. That's not true. Let's start this process again. You can see that. Okay, so you have to take that going to be fun. I think we're going to put that one in first. I think this section of the show is going to be heavily edited. Alright, I need 3 hands for this. Do this. Right. Okay. So this is the one with the spring in it, and that is going to be for that adjusting screw. Now, I'm going to give myself as much room to work underneath this backing plate. So what I'll do is I'll screw it pretty much all the way in. Alright, let's try that. See how far we get. Okay.
Ready to take them?
Yeah. Come on, baby. Show me some love. This part's going to be heavily edited.
Okay, can I walk by to get a
Yeah, sure.
picture?
Yeah, go ahead. And Bob's your uncle. Now, I will show you what I did. Okay, so there's the clip. So you saw me depress the spring with the screwdriver, and then I put this side of the clip in the slot, in the stud, right? And the back side of the clip, which I've got my finger on here, was up over the lip of the stud. And so that allowed the ball of the adjusting screw to slightly push this side of the clip out, which would allow the ball to slip down over top of the head of the spring. And then I took a pair of pliers and I twisted the back side of it down over the lip of the stud, and now it's held in place. The other two shouldn't be as hard because there's no screw. Okay, that's what we said. Okay, so we got the again, if you can see that. So I start off with the clip in the slot, and the other side over the lip of the stud, so that the clip is loose, and the ball of the adjusting screw can push it out of the way to slide in place. So there. It's in place. And I'll take the pliers and just twist the other. It won't come out, so I've got two ends to move with here. Easy with a screwdriver. Hang on, Bessie. Trial and error things. I'm going to turn the clip around so that the clasp is pointing to the inside, and that should allow me to get a better purchase on the yeah, that's all it needs to. Okay, that's two, and now we know what the correct protocol is. I'll flip this pin around as well. So this is the clasp portion of the pin, right? So that goes to the inside, and you slide the edge of the clip to the slot in the stud. Right, you push the ball of the adjusting screw down past the slot, and then you can take a pair of pliers. Excuse me. Come on. Grab hold of the other side of the clip and twist it over the stud. So again, I'll show it to you in detail. All right, so there is the clip. Right, so I twisted this side. See that? Okay, this side of the clip over the lip of the stud. There's the lip of the stud right there. And I twisted it using a pair of needle nose pliers. And so what you can see then is that the clip fitting into the slot here just holds the ball, which is tapered down, so that it forms a hemisphere, or sorry, a sphere with just a small portion of the shaft protruding. Make sure you have a better understanding of that. There's the ball, and you can see it's tapered there. And so what happens is that the edge of the pin there kind of catches it and prevents it from coming up. I hope that's clear as mud. Okay, now I have to go clean my hands. I'm trying to get all our grass cut because we're going away for a couple of days. Do some fishing. Alright, so the backing plate is now securely on. I want to make a remark. You may have noticed that this piece here, just a little piece of plastic trim, was never removed from the reflector, and the reason was that these screws that go into two plastic reinforced studs, these little triangle walls here and here are the reinforcing walls for the stud, and the screw heads, both of them, are so badly corroded that I couldn't reasonably get them out. And cutting is not an option here, of course, because they go right into the plastic. So if you find yourself in that situation, don't blow your brains out trying to get every final last part off. I had difficulty with this piece of plastic chrome trim, which goes on the top of the turn signal housing like that. There's just one screw back there, and it was very badly corroded. I fortunately was able to get that one off. And likewise with the piece of chrome that fits over top of the lens like that. In fact, you can see that the flange here has had a piece fractured off. Now I'm going to show you how you fix this kind of thing. Okay, so here are the mounting screws. Now, for those of you who haven't learned this little trick, I'll show you right back. Now, this evil substance here is called muriatic acid, and it is God's gift to those who restore old automobiles and other machinery, because it is absolutely a rust destroyer. It is particularly aggressive against ferric oxide, which is what rust is. So this is actually hydrochloric acid. It's concentrated hydrochloric acid. It has to be handled with extreme caution. You have to wear a mask. Preferably don't use it indoors. You've got to remember to keep animals and kids far, far away from it. It burns on contact. Deadly on your eyes or mucous membranes. You have to treat this stuff with a great deal of respect. I keep a small amount of it on hand in a plastic margarine dish that I showed you before, with the lid on. It is the plastics are completely impervious to the acid. It only attacks metals. All right, so that was how I cleaned these screws up. So these screws were quite badly corroded when they came off. These are the screws that hold the two chrome trim pieces in that I was just showing you, and they come up quite well. You'll see that there's a small amount of rust that forms immediately after you take them out of the hydrochloric acid. What you do is you douse the part in water. So I keep a bowl of water right beside. It typically will take anywhere from half an hour to, say, a couple of hours, depending upon how badly corroded the part is. You just leave it soaking in the acid, observe it periodically, and when it's time to take it out, you've got your water. You reach in, you grab your part, and you immediately put it in water. And of course, you're going to have some newspaper underneath to catch any splashes. So yeah, muriatic acid, great stuff, but treat it with caution. And I'll say one further thing about the muriatic acid. It attacks only the rust, specifically only the oxides. It reduces the oxides, and the way it does that is the HCl disassociates into hydrogen ions and chloride ions, and the iron is attacked by the let's see how this works. The iron is attacked by the chlorine to form ferrous chloride. So you get some air in there as well. Some oxygen from the water, and you get ferric chlorate, which is a mild salt, and the remaining oxygen recombines with the hydrogen from the hydrochloric acid to form water. So it's that salt, that ferric chlorate, which is water soluble, which is what the rust is converted into. Okay, think about college chemistry for a moment. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to reattach the housing. I think it prevents scratching. Put my screws back in the little orange container. Keep my workplace nice and clean. Here. Looks to be pretty visible. And now on the back of the turn signal housing, right there, two studs, one here. Again, you'll see that they're reinforced with in this case, with two walls, another small wall on either side, and you kind of wonder why they didn't do that on the studs that are on the inside to which the lens is screwed in. Okay, so there's the screw there, there, and there. Of course, the one we just repaired. But that was Volvo engineering for you back in. these wings here have little openings that they're welded to, and it's into those openings that these two studs fit. So the whole thing goes together like this. It's not entirely clear on the video. You'll see it soon enough if you ever attempt one of these jobs. So this is really the easy part of the job. For all intents and purposes, we're done. Now for beginners, there's still some precautions to be observed. One of them is do not over tighten these screws that go into plastic studs. The other thing that occurs to me to mention is to use the proper size driver. Right, so there's the screw head, right, and this driver, which is I believe a number 2 Phillips, fits there, and there should be no play between the 4 blades that form the Phillips cross and the head of the screw itself. In other words, if I turn that, there's absolutely no slop. I mean, these are simple things, and of course all you experienced folks out there know that kind of stuff. It's second nature to you. Now, I'm going to take the nuts off the mounting bolts here. And you're probably wondering how I'm going to prevent a recurrence of the rusting here. Okay. What I'm going to do is kind of twofold. So I'm just going to shut the camera off so as not to waste tape. I'm going to have to intermix video segments with my wife passing by with the lawnmower. Now, I mentioned that one of the anchor mounts here for this chrome trim piece is fractured right there. I'm sure you're all asking, how did I manage to get my wife to become so proficient with a lawnmower? Patience, a great deal of patience. Alright, so back to where we were. So we got this little fracture here. What? And this is the screw, same size as the one we used to attach the turn signal body. So this is how it would ordinarily fit together, like that. Now, as you can see, the surface area on which the washer bears is reduced, right? So whereas over here the washer is going to bear on all 360 degrees of the surface around the hole through which the